Hello and welcome to Knitter Natter with the Hatter, episode 4. I'm Anna Schub, also known as the Hat Junkie. I make and sell hats from my home-based studio in the beautiful old town of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Today I'm going to share the latest hats I'm working on. I'll talk a bit about my latest knitting project and a yarn discovery. I also have some pretty footage from our trip to Maine, including a glorious fabric store. And as always, I will share some walks through Lunenburg with you. Sit back, grab a warm drink, a crafty project if you're so inclined, and enjoy. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Hat Junkie. My website is hatjunkie.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter on my homepage. Every January, I find myself overwhelmed by fabric scraps. They fall off my shelves when I reach for something, and I trip over bags of them. If I was a practical sort of person, I would simply throw them out. But my sustainable little heart won't allow it. Creating with multiple tiny pieces of fabric is slow, to say the least. But working with textiles that would otherwise become landfill is one way for designers to lower their impact on the earth. Right now, I'm focusing on my scrappy hats. Once I have a few made, I'll post them on my website. My newsletter is the best way to find out when they're available. These first two are both made from wool that has been slightly felted. I also have a canvas version in mind. I have a lot of hand-dyed canvas scraps. The other hat that I'd like to show you is one that I was working on last time in episode 3, and it is officially done. And it is this one. It's one of my hand knit and then felted hats. It's a garter stitch and it has this adorable little flower on top, and it reminds me of a sort of 1940s children's skating cap. So as soon as I can get out and take a proper photo, I will then post it on my website, and this will be available too. First sweater I ever knit was the Aileas sweater by Isabell Kraemer. I adore the yarn I used, but with a little more woolly knowledge under my belt, I wouldn't use that yarn again for sweater knitting. It's wonderful for hats, shawls, and accessories. It's woolen spun, which I love, but it's a very short fiber staple with a very loose twist. These qualities make for a super warm, lofty, and soft garment, but together they are a recipe for a sweater that doesn't hold up over time. I don't mind some pilling, but I have my limits. If I'm going to put over a month into knitting a sweater, I want it to last for many years. I had to retire that sweater, and it currently lives as a cat blanket, but I have been really missing it. Just before Christmas, I went fabric shopping to make my son a bathrobe, and they were having a sale on Briggs & Little heritage yarn. What's a mama to do? I walked out with 7 skeins of yarn for $35 and a plan to reknit my first sweater. Here it is. Isn't this a gorgeous color? I have one more sleeve to go, the collar and button bands. I already know this will be an everyday kind of sweater. I've used Briggs & Little yarn for 4 other sweaters, and I love its rustic quality. It softens up a lot after blocking. You'd never describe it as a soft yarn, but tougher yarns are my personal preference for garments. It's really fun to go back and knit the sweater now that I actually understand what's happening with the construction. It's truly ingenious. You start by knitting one back shoulder. You then put that on hold and knit the other back shoulder. You cast on stitches that go across the back and attach the two shoulders. Then you knit down to the bottom of the back yoke. The back yoke gets put on hold and you pick up stitches from one of the back shoulders to start the front. The same thing happens on the other side, and then the front and back are knitted together and the body of the sweater is knit down in one piece. The shoulder caps are shaped with short rows. There are these very easy to memorize mock cables to keep things interesting. I did make the same stupid mistake twice, 5 years apart, and put one of the back cables in the wrong place. The takeaway lesson here is always read to the end of the sentence. If you're looking for a really well-written, easy to knit cardigan, I can't recommend this pattern enough. I put the link in the description box below. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I made a yarn discovery. Briggs & Little yarn has a lot of twist. While I've been knitting, the yarn has been tangling around itself. I'm used to that happening when knitting with 1-ply yarn, but not when knitting with a 2-ply. I looked it up and found a very informative video by Roxanne Richardson. What's happening is that twist is being added to the yarn as it's unwinding from the ball. It becomes really noticeable if the yarn already has a lot of twist. She explains a method to fix this problem. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but I definitely will. I'll link the video in the description box below. Tony and I went to Maine for New Year's. I hadn't seen my sister-in-law and brother-in-law in 3 years. It was time to leave the COVID cocoon. I look back on my 20-year-old self who up and left Toronto for New York City to be a dancer with $500 in her pocket and no place to live, and I wonder if she's even remotely related to my present 55-year-old self who is terrified every time she's going to leave the house for more than a day. Will the dog think I've abandoned him? Will the cat be played with? What if we die in a fiery car crash? Before we left, my 18-year-old had a cold. What if we bring COVID to our family? What if I get sick and have to isolate the whole time? And the worst fear of all, did I pack the right knitting projects? Really, I exhaust myself just talking about it. But as always, the minute we are actually on the road, my anxiety melts away. Taking the ferry from Digby, Nova Scotia to St. John, New Brunswick is the way to go. It doesn't cut off travel time, but it cuts off driving time. Staring out the window at the Bay of Fundy is so exciting for me. On one trip I saw porpoises. There's just something about leaving a port and arriving to a port that feels so grand. Our family live in Winterport, Maine, near Bangor. Amy, my sister-in-law, channels her artistic ability into her home. I can't think of a cozier place on earth. We were joined by 2 other dear friends and we spent 3 gluttonous days just chilling out. We went to one of my favorite little cities, Belfast, Maine. This is a place I could live in a heartbeat. It has great restaurants, a small movie theater, a beautiful yarn shop, and my favorite fabric store on earth, Fiddlehead Artisan Supplies. I walked away with a few treasures. I may have done enough damage to be given a free tote bag. It all began because they had samples made of this beautiful dress by Sew House 7. It's called the Tea House Top and Dress. And at first I saw these amazing floral canvases and I just really wanted to make that dress in this canvas. But I was convinced by the young woman that lived there, that, worked there, that that probably wasn't the best choice because the dress is meant to be, or designed to be, flowy, and this maybe would have had too strong lines to it. So I was steered to this linen, and I'm sure it's going to be gorgeous. So I'm very excited to work those up. I do have a birthday coming up, so maybe that's going to be my birthday present to myself. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed my video, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you all soon. Bye!